This is CBC Here and Now.
Certainly a victory for this province as well, because it's going to mean a lot of good paying jobs.
We're excited and relieved that the project got the green light.
Big smile on my face.
A sigh of relief for many as a tentative deal keeps the Terra Nova project from being scuttled.
Now questions about what happens next.
The mayors of the province's 4 largest municipalities gather today near Manuel's River to talk about economic development. I'm Jeremy Eaton, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Summer arrives early Monday morning, and we've got plenty of summer-like temperatures to get us there.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Anthony Germain. Many in the oil and its spin-off industries are breathing a little easier tonight.
Suncor announced yesterday evening an agreement in principle to extend the life of the Terra Nova project. The deal includes a new ownership structure for the oil field, money to continue planning for a major overhaul of the Terra Nova production vessel, and a strategy to sanction that work this fall. As Here Now's Mark Quinn tells us today, the government was celebrating the deal as others raised questions about how much of the work is going to be done here.
We thank Suncor and their partners for finding common ground and allowing our skilled trades workers another chance to work on this project.
It's a rare day at the House of Assembly when the opposition starts question period with praise and applause. But the leader of the opposition said it was the right thing to do.
We're giving credits where credit's due to everybody who was engaged here. We saw out on the step here what that meant for the people, you know. Municipalities were engaged in this. Other unions were engaged in this. So it's a collaborative approach to do the right thing.
Earlier today, provincial and federal politicians spoke with reporters about the Terra Nova deal. The federal natural resources minister summed up reaction to the news with a word.
Relieved. I've spent a lot of time, as I know the Premier and the Minister have, speaking to Dave Mercer and 2 members of his union, and there were a lot of people who have been incredibly anxious over these past few days and months.
An agreement in principle means this project has been pulled back from the brink, but Premier Andrew Furey says the next hurdle is an asset life extension agreement.
My understanding in talking to Mr. Little from Suncor is that now they need to ratify this internally. So whether there's different stakeholders involved, obviously they need to take this to their board or to their shareholders, and hopefully we can see a sanction of an ALE formally by late August.
The operators say this FPSO vessel needs a $600 million retrofit before the project can proceed. And exactly who will do that work and where it will be done hasn't been worked out yet.
The refit, there's some work that has to happen here in Newfoundland and Labrador as a part of the MOU, but there is going to have to be some work that happens elsewhere in order to get this back in the field as fast as possible.
The agreement the government has with the Terra Nova operators means that if the project goes ahead, the province will forego about $300 million in royalties and hand over about $200 million federal dollars to the oil companies. The province still expects to receive about $35 million in royalties over the life of the project extension. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
So what are people in the labour and offshore service sectors saying about this plan to save the Terra Nova? Well, Terry Roberts has that story.
What a difference a day can make. Yesterday, union leader Dave Mercer was bracing for a worst-case scenario, the possible decommissioning and abandonment of the Terra Nova oil field. His mood today, the complete opposite.
Everybody that was involved with this should be happy.
Mercer's phone was abuzz today with calls from relieved Terra Nova workers. After more than a year of turmoil and uncertainty, there's now a growing sense of optimism.
It's a victory for a lot of people, especially our members, and it's certainly a victory for this province as well, because it's going to mean a lot of good paying jobs.
It's not a done deal, but there's growing confidence that the Terra Nova will eventually return to the Grand Banks for another decade of production, and that the 1,000 jobs linked to the oil field a few years ago will eventually return.
The whole offshore industry was at stake, and I think we're sitting pretty good there now.
Big smile on my face.
After months of repeated setbacks and massive job losses, it was a much-needed boost for the province's Oil and Gas Industries Association.
A couple of hundred people kept their jobs yesterday, and many hundreds more are going to get called back.
This offshore marine base in St. John's has been noticeably quiet. A drop in offshore activity means less cargo and fewer supply ships. In pre-pandemic times, interviews on the dock would be a safety hazard, but not today.
So with all of this good news, we want to see more activity. We want to see those cranes swinging behind me. Had we lost Terra Nova, that would have been 25% of our offshore. So having this project going bodes well for our entire industry.
The Terra Nova is docked at Bull Arm, in need of a major upgrade. And with about $500 million in cash and royalty relief from the provincial government on the table, the Building Trades Council is hoping this will mean much needed work for its members, thousands of whom are unemployed.
We think it would be more than reasonable to expect that that as much as can be done here in the province should be done here in the province. We've got a great facility in Bull Arm where the rig is currently. There's been lots of similar work done over the years here. We have the capacity, we have the manpower, we have the expertise.
Now that there seems to be new life for the Terra Nova, industry supporters are now hoping this is the beginning of a cascade of good news announcements, with all eyes now pivoting towards Equinor and its massive series of oil discoveries in the Flemish Pass. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
The forest fire crews have been on the scene in Lewisport today. A water bomber had been dousing a fire near Wolfrey's Pond, but left about an hour ago. A crew of 5 people is still fighting it from the ground. Fire officials told us just moments ago that the fire is under control. They say the fire started at around 3 o'clock this afternoon, about 1 kilometre away from the park by Wolfrey's Pond, near the campsite there. The fire is small, around 100 by 100 metres.
Well, speaking of forest fires, we're getting into those summer months, and the risk of forest fires is certainly increasing Central for sure. Let's take a look at the map. This is for tomorrow. Many areas through Central seeing high or very high risk of those forest fires, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we haven't seen a lot of rain so far this June. It's been fairly dry. Lewisport, Grand Falls winds are only seeing between 10 to as much as 30 millimeters of rain. Normal for this time of year would be about 89.4 in and around the Grand Falls, Windsor area. And then the most rain we've seen so far has been in St. John's, about 51 millimeters, but that's still half of what we would normally see for this time of year. And unfortunately, I don't really see a whole lot of measurable rain over the next week or so, but I will get into those details because there's lots more warm weather where that came from when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. As travel restrictions lift, flights are starting to return to the province. Air Canada announced the return of a few routes, and they're adding a new one. That new flight is a daily flight between Deer Lake and Montreal, and it's starting July 1st. This is on top of the direct flight to Toronto. Daily service between St. John's and Toronto is going to resume as well. Flights from Gander to Toronto and Halifax are also starting back up, and they're going to be 5 and 3 times a week respectively. Goose Bay to St. John's service is also resuming with Air Canada, but only 3 times a week.
The NDP wants more resources dedicated to wildlife enforcement. This After Here Now took a deep dive into the topic of salmon poaching last night. Charges against a high-profile eye surgeon on the West Coast were dismissed during an April trial in Corner Brook. Dr. Justin French pleaded not guilty, while another man, co-accused of the same offense, pleaded guilty. For preservation groups like Spawn, poaching is a major concern. It claims more people are resorting to illegal netting and poaching to catch salmon. Jim Dinn is the MHA for St. John's Centre. He is also an avid angler, and today he put his concerns to the minister responsible.
Last night, CBC's Here and Now reported on an egregious example of poaching on a river on the west coast of the island. I asked the Minister of Fisheries, Forestry and Agriculture what extra enforcement measures and resources will he deploy to help stamp out poaching, which threatens our wild Atlantic salmon population and takes away from the honest angler.
And a great question. Given the season, angling is open for salmon, people are on the rivers. The best resources we have are the anglers themselves. The more that these people can report any illegal activity that can be seen, the better it is. It's better to protect our resource. We are actively at all times recruiting for our members of our enforcement division. Our enforcement, like we cover the province, Obviously, we can't be everywhere. I cannot speak on the DFO charges because that is DFO. But nor do I condone anybody does any illegal activity on our rivers, with our wildlife, anything in this province, Mr. Speaker. And we are committed to catch where we can. We have a poachers number, 1-800 number that you call to report poachers. You can do it online. You can do it anonymously, Mr. Speaker. I encourage everybody to do their part.
And he didn't catch a breath, Mr. Speaker. Or a salmon. Mr. Speaker, 1-800 numbers are fine, but we still need the resources there to stamp out this practice.
Other news now, the mayors of 4 major municipalities in the province met today to discuss development. Conception Bay South, Mount Pearl, Paradise and St. John's will spend nearly $100,000 exploring ways to grow economic opportunities that will benefit all 4 municipalities. Jeremy Eaton now with that story.
Recent high school graduates pose for pictures along the scenic Manuels River, while 4 mayors sat inside, agreeing to work together to better the whole area.
We're the 4 largest municipalities. Collectively, we probably represent over 200,000 people who live here. So, we got to get over ourselves, to be quite frank. And, without losing our own autonomy, we got to get over ourselves and start doing things collectively.
This is phase 1 of the plan. With more than $50,000 of ACOA money to help fund it, each mayor pledged an additional $10,000.
Despite our recent success with economic development, we can do better. At the same time, we can help the region. That's a plus, I think. I believe any time that something happens good in Mount Pearl, I strongly believe it helps CBS, Paradise and St. John's at the same time.
The Big 4 already share services, but this is about how to bring in new economic opportunities.
We've got to start looking at doing things differently. And we've got to start reacting to what the world markets are. And the world is a global market right now. We have an opportunity to take our piece of that, but we can only do that if we work together.
Each mayor is part of a steering committee who will help guide the work.
I'm sure there's going to be benefits there. We already see the benefits of collaboration and working together.
But just because the 4 are working together doesn't mean a push for amalgamation is on the agenda.
I don't see that as being a real big question right now. The big question right now, or the big thing is that if we get increased economic development in either St. John's, Paradise, Mount Pearl, or CBS, it helps everybody.
As of today, the timeline to complete this report is December 31st of this year. Then it will be handed to each municipality who will look it over, and then a decision will be made if they want to move on to phase 2. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, Conception Bay South.
Well, let's give you the latest on COVID. There is one new case to tell you about. It's a person in the area covered by Central Health, and it's a contact of a previous case, but it's not connected to the cluster there. Health officials say there are now 2 people in hospital in the province. There have been some recoveries, leaving 32 active cases. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization today announced a new recommendation regarding COVID-19 vaccinations. It said weeks ago that provinces shouldn't be giving AstraZeneca as the first dose. Now the group of independent experts is advising people who got AstraZeneca as their first shot not to get it as their second. The advisory committee says an mRNA vaccine is now preferred as the second dose for people who received AstraZeneca as their first shot. It says the decision is based on emerging signs of a better immune response. The committee also says there is a risk of developing blood clots from the second shot, an issue that appeared with the first doses. Since early May, all provinces have halted the use of AstraZeneca for first doses, but many continue to use it for the second shot. This province has not been using AstraZeneca for first doses since May.
Well, George Murphy's family is releasing a T-shirt in his memory.
Yeah, the shirt is based on the last tweet Murphy sent before he passed away.
Now, it was of his fire pit with the caption, "Nutting like it," and proceeds from the shirt sale will go to the George Murphy Memorial Fund.
Murphy was well known for predicting changes in oil and gas prices and for being a cab driver and a former NDP MHA. The 58-year-old died at home almost 2 weeks ago.
I'm Colleen Connors in Kings Point, and I'm going to tell you all about a high school student who's passionate about growing and sharing food.
I just love to actually watch the
stuff that we plan and put so much effort into to actually start and grow and to be something bigger.
I'll tell you about her grand plans for a very unique greenhouse.
There are some big ideas growing right here in Newfoundland and Labrador.
We were going to help people who are not growing things at home and maybe don't have the means to grow them.
CBCNL and the Food Producers Forum have teamed up to bring you a brand new series about the local food movement.
The way it was told to us, there was a gentleman growing it here in Newfoundland. For some reason, the garlic he had got shipped out to British Columbia. We're trying to develop that variety of garlic.
Those diggers, those dreamers and innovators who are building healthy food communities right here at home.
We feel like we are custodians of this special Newfoundland tall variety.
Catch from the ground up on Here and Now, CBC Radio, and online.
This weather update is brought to you by Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. It's time to explore the Great Wide Open. Plan your trip at yourbackyardbeckons.ca.
Ashley, I'm a little bit jealous of the fact that you get to do your job outside today. I pitched reading the news outside, but they wouldn't let me, so. Very jealous.
Yeah, perks of being a meteorologist for sure. Yeah, it's a beautiful day today. We saw a little bit more sunshine earlier than I expected yesterday, so that was good for the afternoon. Temperatures soaring as well today. Let's take a look at those daytime highs across the board. Reached 21 degrees in St. John's, areas through Central. Saw a high near 24, even 22 degrees in Twillingate today. And then, unfortunately though, hanging on to those cooler temperatures for Northern Labrador. Nain only reaching a high near 6 degrees today. Those current temperatures still sitting there, looking at a beautiful evening tonight. And you may have noticed, certainly for eastern areas anyway, we saw a little bit of humidity sticking around. Humidex values today between 24 and 25 for most of eastern Newfoundland. Unfortunately, we're going to say goodbye to that for the next couple of days, but it does look like that will return as we head towards the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. So we do have an area of low pressure in place. That's what's bringing that rain and cloud cover to most of Labrador. However, the island, you're sitting in that sunshine for the most part. Took a little bit longer to clear out today for the south coast, and that will generally be the story as we head through the night tonight, with the areas of fog sticking around, but it'll be quiet. Maybe a few showers through central, northern, and western Newfoundland for the next couple of hours, but that should clear out. Then we're looking at partly to mostly cloudy skies for most of the island. And then for Labrador, things will stay cloudy in the west and the chance of a few showers for the next couple of hours for essentially central Labrador through to the coast, but that will clear off as well, and then you'll see some showers move right back in for Lab City and northern areas of Labrador as well towards the early morning hours. Temperatures tonight going to be beautiful, not dropping too much. Going to stay between 10 to 12 degrees as our overnight lows across the island. A little cooler for the northern peninsula. And the winds will drop off a little bit as well. We're looking at southwesterlies anywhere from 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. And then most of Labrador staying around 8 degrees, except to the north where you see your temperatures drop a few more degrees tonight. Down to Nain will sit down at 3 degrees as your overnight low. Tomorrow, not a whole lot to talk about across the island. It will be an absolutely beautiful day. We'll likely see some cloud cover, or at least some cloudy periods at times through the afternoon, but lots of sunshine in play as well. And then across Labrador, it'll be unsettled. However, even though there's a chance of showers, you'll still see some sun at times. The western portion will likely stay cloudy through the day, but overall not a bad afternoon. And we'll see some cloud cover move in towards the early morning hours on Saturday for the east. So temperatures tomorrow, 20 to 25 degrees. Along the southern portion again of the Avalon, you'll likely see temperatures in the teens towards the coast. Further inland, you'll get back up into those 20s again. Winds will be out of the southwest about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Through central, 25 degrees it looks like. Beautiful afternoon expected. Again, you might see some clouds develop in the afternoon, but overall, it will be a beautiful day. Same thing along the south coast where you see some of those cooler temperatures, but the further inland you go, you should reach those 20s. And then towards the west coast, nothing but sunshine. Southwesterlies about 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. 20 to 22 degrees will be your afternoon highs. And then a little bit cooler towards the northern peninsula, 19 degrees for St. Anthony. Marystown 21. Then as we head towards central Newfoundland, or rather central Labrador, 22 degrees for Happy Valley Goose Bay. Again, some sunshine, but also the chance of a few showers. In Lab City, you're going to sit at 17 degrees. So that's a look at tomorrow's forecast. We're getting closer and closer to the weekend. Looks a little bit unsettled. Well, I'll get into those details when I come back.
Well, now for another story from our series From the Ground Up, this time to Kings Point, where a 14-year-old girl is changing the way her community grows and eats food.
Yeah, Casey Budgell is beyond passionate about gardening, and she hopes with the addition of a new greenhouse that everyone in her town will be able to benefit. Here now's Colleen Connors has more.
This is where you will find this teenager most evenings and weekends. 14-year-old Casey Budgell is really into gardening and growing food.
Radishes, lettuce, tomatoes, peppers, cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower.
She starts many of her plants here at home before heading to the field down the road. And she's quickly running out of room.
The passion mainly comes from my mom and dad because they're teaching me all what they've learned from their grandparents and what their grandparents learned from theirs. And it's just so exciting to know that it's been passed down through the family, and this has been running through my family as a passion.
A passion that's grown at her school as well. K-12 Valmont Academy has plants growing in every classroom, and incubators with hatching eggs. Fluffy little chicks that some students take home. Students at Valmont, in collaboration with the town, even built this community garden just down the road.
We want our roots to show, and we want to connect to our culture so that our school is able to, at the very least, show our students that they're able to do this for the future.
Kelly says students like Casey are an inspiration with big ideas. The biggest yet is the Food Producer Forum's Earth-Sheltered Greenhouse. Casey applied, and this town is now one of 7 communities that will get a greenhouse. It will be installed here at the community garden, something her town will contribute to and help construct.
You know, it's really projects like this that fit within the sustainability of Kings Point, our town. You know, known once for its rich agriculture and a lot of active farming in the region. You know, it really relies on the youth to be able to bring these projects forward. And as council, we see this in a bit of our vision as a way to sustain Kings Point.
Casey jumped up and down screaming with delight when she found out Kings Point was chosen for one of these sheltered greenhouses. A greenhouse that's interior wall and flooring are embedded into the ground to create a longer growing season. She has big plans.
To have the greenhouse itself and to let the people that may not have the land or the means to actually have a place of their own to go up there and use it as if it was their own, to provide for their families and to just enjoy growing with family members and have the time spent with them.
Something this 14-year-old truly treasures. She would like to see the food harvested added to a community cabinet or freezer for a town food exchange. For now, while she waits for construction and installation, Casey will keep growing her plants, harvesting and turning her crops into delicious sauces, preserves, and treats.
I really enjoy the part of actually being able to harvest the food and bring it into my kitchen and being able to actually make it into something that would be edible and taste great.
Colleen Connors, CBC News, Kings Point.
The problem with catch and release, anglers here in this area just don't accept it. They don't want to play with the life of salmon just for fun.
For catch and release to work, you have to do it right. Even people who don't believe in catch and release have to release a fish at some time.
2 anglers, 2 very different points of view.
Catch and release or hook and cook? Pros and cons after the break. Well, here at Harry's River, one of the beautiful rivers on the west coast of the island, and we're going to talk about a controversial issue in the salmon angling world, and that is catch and release. Sid Stiles is the chair of the Bay St. George Salmon Stewardship Group. So, Sid, what is your issue with catch and release?
And the problem with catch and release, anglers here in this area just don't accept it. They don't want to play with the life of salmon just for fun. They want to retain their salmon, and basically over 90% of the salmon are hook and retain salmon fishermen. And that leaves about 10% or less that's in favor of hook and release.
Now, Sid, people watching might think, okay, this man is saying if people can keep more salmon, there'll be more salmon. Can you explain that? Because I think some people think catch and release saves fish.
Well, that was one of the things that we covered first when we started, that was hook and release. And at our meetings with Conrad Mullins, with one of the biologists with DFO, I had said that at the meeting, when we were about ready to vote on our plan that we're working on, that if they allow us to retain salmon, we would increase the salmon tenfold. And he had problems understanding that as a biologist. He more or less said, well, if you're going to allow people to kill salmon, you're going to get more salmon. And I explained to him, yes, because the presence of the local anglers on the rivers will make a big difference to people that's netting. It'll stop a lot of the netting and discourage people from buying, and the salmon population would go up. And that's exactly what it did.
You say you're against the whole idea of playing a fish just for the sake of it. Can you explain that to me?
Well, we don't see the sense of beating out a fish just for pleasure. That fish is what we view tortured, basically. And with meetings with DFO and the different salmon groups, the Conn River group, they say the same thing, that actually they consider it a form of torture to play a fish. So what we're allowed to play a fish, and we retain it for food. And we, of course, enjoy the sport of it, catching it.
So, Sid, what would you like to see happen here to protect salmon in the 10 rivers that you monitor?
Well, Anthony, we need to go back to what we had that was successful for 15 years. That was brought the salmon levels up to past historic levels, really. We had the first 5 years that we had, the salmon was the highest conservation plan that DFO ever seen. And the next 5 years, we increased that again. And in the next 5 years, from 2012 to 2016, we achieved conservation levels for over a 5-year period, which has never been done on Harry's River. And in 2017, DFO brought back hook and release, and from there, we've been losing people to help support us, and a lot of the local anglers are off the rivers, and there is a fair amount of poaching going on again, and there's a lot of people that's starting to support it by buying the salmon.
Now, Castine, the woman just over my shoulder, is making these long, beautiful casts, and she makes it look easy. She has a completely different point of view when it comes to catch and release than Sid Stiles, and if I can get her off the river, I'll get her to share her thoughts with me. So, Castine, how did you get into salmon fishing?
I started salmon fishing when I was a kid, just going out on the river with my dad and my brothers, and it was mainly just like a little hobby. Kind of, he'd take one of us out at a time when I think we all needed to get out of the house in the middle of the summer. But I just fell in love with it, and I really got into it probably when I was 17 or 18.
What do you like about Big Falls in this particular pool you're fishing?
Oh, there's a lot of water here on a good day, and the fishing is actually challenging, which is a good thing. So normally if you get on these small little rivers, you can see the fish, you can kind of cast across the full river, and that's not always fun for a full day. So I like Big Falls because it's a big challenge.
Okay, big challenge. Now, I want you to talk to me about catch and release. You're a believer in catch and release. What are your thoughts about it?
I love catch and release because I want to be on the river every day. And if I had to fill my tags and walk off, I wouldn't have a lot of fun. So catch and release has been around since the 1800s. It works. There's a lot of science involved, and in order for catch and release to work, you have to do it right. So just being up on the current science and the current news and handling techniques is the best way to ensure the survival of the species.
Now, as you know, there's some old school anglers who claim if you allowed people to say keep 4 fish, retain 4 fish instead of 2, there would be more people out fishing. If you have more people out fishing, then there are fewer poachers on the river. And so catch and release because it discourages so many anglers, they claim, actually doesn't save fish. It actually puts more poaching into play. Do you buy that?
I think that allowing catch and release keeps the anglers on the river. If you took catch and release off and only said like catch and keep and then you're done, the rivers would be empty after June. So.
And what about the people who say, you know, you hook a fish, you play a fish, it's actually more torture than conservation, that if you're going to catch it, you should eat it? The
you have to do it right.
The hook and cook crowd.
The hook, well, even people who don't believe in catch and release have to release a fish at some time. If you catch a par, you have to release it properly. That's the entire survival of the salmon.
Tiny little salmon.
Yeah, the little salmon. So they're just as important. If you catch one that's too small or too big, you also have to let those go. So if you're not releasing properly, the fish aren't going to survive, and you actually have to know what you're doing.
And you've actually made videos showing proper catch and release techniques, right?
Yes.
Why'd you do that?
There's a lot of people that don't know, and it's really important, and especially for the youth coming through, just knowing how to release that fish that they catch. If they want to release it, then they know how to do it.
All right, so for somebody watching right now who thinks, okay, I think I know how to catch and release, what's the most important thing to know?
Ooh, there's
a lot.
There's a lot.
But I see people take the fish out of the water, get a picture. You know, they got the glove and all that. So I don't know. Like, to me, it would make more sense just to try to get the hook out without taking the fish out of the water.
Yeah. So there is a website. It's called keepfishwet.org. It is amazing. It's all science-based principles for catch and release. They've got a quick little list there. So it's basically you keep the fish in the water for as long as you can. I think it's about, you can have up to 5 seconds of air exposure for a fish. Your hands should be bare, wet hands, so no gloves, no dry hands. Barbs pinched, obviously, and using a knotless rubber net reduces the handling on the fish. So it's in the net until that second that you need to release it, and even then you don't have to touch the fish, so you can kind of tip the net, use your hand under the net and guide it out.
Listen, Castine, appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we reported earlier in the show, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization has a new recommendation. It's advising people who got AstraZeneca as their first shot not to get it as their second, suggesting they follow up with a Pfizer or Moderna shot instead. Here's Canada's Chief Public Health Officer on that.
It's really the immunogenicity, that immune response after that mixed dose schedule that's resulted in NACI updating this recommendation because all of the accumulated study essentially suggests that that immune response is a better response.
As of June 5th, 1.7 million Canadians had received at least one dose of AstraZeneca. In other news, the Prime Minister has nominated a new justice for the Supreme Court. Ontario Court of Appeal Justice Mahmoud Jamal has been named to replace retiring Supreme Court Justice Rosalie Silberman-Abella. As a lawyer, Jamal appeared in 35 appeals before the Supreme Court on a wide range of legal matters. He also taught constitutional law at McGill University and administrative law at Osgoode Hall Law School. He's bilingual. His nomination still has to go through the formal approval process. As Pride Month continues across Canada, there are plenty of displays of support, but there are also growing signs of intolerance, even hate. Just this week, we told you about 2 schools on the Avalon that had pride flags stolen and destroyed. And as Magda Gabricelesis reports, some in Toronto worry these crimes are on the rise.
Showing true colors of support. On Saturday, Joni Johnson went shopping for a pride flag, a sign of love for her 23-year-old daughter who recently came out.
I placed it in the garden. And I took a picture and I sent it to my daughter and I was all excited. I'm like, this is for you, baby girl.
But hours later, it was gone. She bought more. Tuesday morning, she woke up to this.
I noticed the flags were gone and then I noticed they were burnt.
It's one of many anti-LGBTQ incidents emerging across the country. Police in Ontario are investigating this video showing a pride flag being burned, allegedly by high school students. White paint weaponized in Vancouver, destroying this rainbow-colored church display. And in Toronto, a 24-year-old man heading home from a queer-friendly spot attacked. Police investigating it as hate-motivated.
It just amplifies that hate is alive in our city.
Justin Kahn says hate crimes against the community are on the rise. Police stats from 2019 show they went up by 41% compared to the year before. As for how to end this,
I think it starts just in the everyday discourse of conversations. You know, there are jokes being made, there are slurs being said. You know, those small conversations, it's a snowball effect.
Right now, about 1 million Canadians identify as being part of the LGBTQ2+ community. And despite generational change and acceptance,
there's still a problem in schools with homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia.
A survey of schools across Canada reports that nearly 2/3 of high school students hear homophobic comments weekly.
But we're still seeing that 2S LGBTQ students are reporting much higher levels of harassment in schools, feeling less safe in schools.
In Edmonton, Johnson will keep the flags coming, flying hope in the face of any hate. Magda Gabricelesis, CBC News, Toronto.
Muslims represent almost a quarter of the world's population and yet account for just a small fraction of roles in Hollywood productions. And many of those roles embody negative stereotypes. As Eli Glasner reports, there is now a push to change that.
Toronto's Ali Momin is many things. An actor, a podcaster,
a healthcare system underfunded,
even an aspiring politician. But he'll never forget how Hollywood first cast him.
Suicide bomber number 3. In the movie Traitor with Don Cheadle.
He was trained to kill.
Eager for acting credits, Momin accepted.
In hindsight, I deeply regret it. I wish I never said yes. But if I'm to be honest, you know, we use the word systemic all the time. I was a part of a system.
As his career continued, so did the offers. Terrorists, nefarious bad guys, generic Arab speakers, even though he's a non-Arab from Iran.
It otherizes you. And even when there is a Muslim representation that isn't terrorist-like or nefarious, it's exoticized.
A recent study confirms how Hollywood overlooks and ignores the Muslim community. Of the top 100 films in the U.S. from 2017 to 2019, only 1.1% of the speaking roles were Muslim. Then there's the issue of violence.
Specifically, about 40% of Muslim characters were shown as perpetrators of violence, and more than half of Muslim characters were shown as targets of violence. We also saw that 19% of Muslim characters in our sample also died by the end of the film.
Oscar-winning actor Riz Ahmed is part of a group that commissioned this study. He sees a connection between what happened in London, Ontario, and what we see on our screens.
People don't just wake up hating Muslims. They believe a story that we have to look at ourselves and ask whether we are complicit in perpetuating.
To combat that, Ahmed's partners are launching new guides and grants to support Muslim-centered stories.
I got fired.
Like the comedy series Dirty Love. Ottawa's Mesa Huri was tired of playing terrorist wives and refugees, so she created a show with a contemporary view of Muslim life.
I just wanted to be who I am, and I want to be able to show that on screen as well.
We all have a story.
Using stories to push back against the stereotypes. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
It's meticulous work. A traditional beading is beautiful, but for Mackenzie Dyson, it isn't just an art form, it's also a window into an older world.
Yeah, the teen is teaching herself, for the most part, and learning more than just her technique. Here's Mackenzie's story, told with the help of the Labrador Friendship Centre and the Shield Project.
So right now I'm starting off a pair of earrings. Pull your needle through. Hi, my name's Mackenzie Dyson, and I'm from Goose Bay, originally from Cartwright, and here's my story. So I've always had an interest for different artworks like beading and stuff like that, but the summer is when my interest really took flight, let's say. The summer I was at this Shield camp thing, and in the evening times we do different activities, and I learned how to do a few crafts. The next step is to go through the first bead of the first row you're done with the colored beads. But there's one thing that caught my eye was one of the members with us who was teaching some people how to bead. So growing up, I never really had anybody to teach me how to bead, but a few months back, my mom found some beads and a pair of earrings that she made years ago, and she decided to give them to me so I can practice or learn. So I didn't really have anybody that I knew that could teach me to bead, so I decided to go on YouTube to learn. In my family, I knew that beading was getting lost, and none of my family really beaded anymore, so I decided to keep up the practice and taught myself. And these are the earrings, the first pair of earrings I made, and they're similar to the ones my mom made. I tried to make them similar to the ones she made because I found the ones she made were really nice. From the beginning, I'm glad my family supports me. It helps me have the confidence to keep going and practicing beading and getting better at it. In all honesty, I had no clue how to bead at first. I had nobody teach me, but I'm very thankful that I learned. Beading has helped me connect with my ancestry. It has helped me connect to their way of life and how they used to live and things they would do for a living. The last and final step is to grab one of your earring hooks. And here's the finished earring. So what Indigenous means to me is helping me understand my ancestry, and just overall it helps me know who I am as a person, know where I came from, and what I like, and what I'd like my future to be like.
Ashley, you warned us that the weekend is looking a little unsettled. What exactly are we talking about here?
Yeah, so it does look like we're going to see some chances of some rain at times. I don't see anything super significant as far as that rain goes, but that chance will still be there nonetheless. Let's take a look at the future tracker as we head into Saturday. The most activity, or at least rainfall activity, will be up across Labrador as an area of low pressure will move in through the day on Saturday and pretty much stay there through the day on Sunday as well. The best chance of seeing some rain for eastern areas of the island will be Saturday night, it looks like, into Sunday morning, and then we should actually see some sunshine in between that through the day on Saturday. And as that area of low pressure weakens and moves through the province, we are still going to see that chance of showers continuing through Monday morning. But again, likely not going to stick with those gray skies. We'll see some clearing as we head towards the afternoon hours, and then another area of low pressure will move in north of Labrador, and that's going to bring that chance of showers for you. So temperatures on Saturday, absolutely beautiful. 22 to 26 degrees through central, a little cooler again along the south coast, just in that onshore flow. And again, that chance of showers that you see there for Marystown and St. John's and eastern Newfoundland really will be later on in the day. The first half looks beautiful, and then we're going to continue to see those gray skies for Saturday across Labrador. But temperatures will start to climb as well, so 19 to 20 degrees, a little cooler in the north. Now by Sunday, you'll get into the double-digit temperatures for Nain. However, it will stay cloudy with that chance of showers. A little bit more sunshine peeking through for you across Labrador on Sunday. And then, like I said, some sun and cloud for the majority of Newfoundland, and then maybe some showers for the west coast as well as through central. The further east we go, we should actually see some clearing skies, but those temperatures again will stay in the 20s. So for the rest of the weekend and into next week, temperatures should stay in the 20s and overnight lows into the double digits. By Monday and Tuesday, looking nice with a mix of sun and cloud to start the week and start summer. For central Newfoundland, you're looking at chance of showers on Monday, but by Tuesday, temperatures back up into the high 20s, 27 degrees. And this is when we're going to start to see a little bit of more humidity in play as well, certainly through western Newfoundland. 27 degrees on Tuesday, nothing but sunshine, so humidity looks like it'll feel more like the 30s. And then for eastern Labrador, showers pretty much right through Tuesday, although a little bit more sunshine in play Monday and Tuesday. And then for Lab West, you're looking at the same thing as far as those unsettled conditions go, but temperatures looking pretty nice. Wanted to share this photo, lobster pods in English Harbor. Bill shared that iconic shot there with us, and if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Great picture. Lobster season just about, that's coming to an end. The school year's coming to an end too, so congratulations to all of you teachers who've had quite the year, and of course students as well, and good sunshine and nice weather is upon us.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are hoping that next September school year is going to look a whole lot different than the one that's just wrapping up.
Yeah, as you know, Peter, students like to talk about marks and percentages. You're the COVID student around here. How are we doing as far as the shots go in terms of percentage right now?
Well, Anthony, we've got the latest marks have just come in,
report
and
card.
Newfoundland and Labrador has hit 74% of people vaccinated. So what does that put us? B territory?
Yeah.
A solid B. So it also puts us just 1% away from that 75% that we need in order to start that reopening plan and allow travel again.
B plus?
So yeah, that, and we've been doing about 1% a day, so I suspect tomorrow night on the show we will be reporting that we've reached that 75% goal.
Good.
And I know a lot of people may be wondering, wait, does that mean like we weren't expected to reach that till about July 1st? Can we move things up a bit and start travel a little sooner? And unfortunately, the answer from Dr. Janice Fitzgerald at this week's briefing was no. Mostly because they still need the time to get everything ready. It's not just a case of being able to flick a switch and say,
right,
come on in. They need to make sure there's testing in place for people who have one dose and are going to need a test to prove that they're negative. They are also going to need the online forms for you to go in and submit your proof of vaccination, because whether or not you're vaccinated is going to change how your isolation looks. And so all those things are happening in the background as they get ready. So they're sticking with July 1st as the opening date, but certainly a milestone worth marking. We'll be keeping an eye on those numbers, and we'll have an update for you tomorrow night.
All right, we'll see you then.
Have a good night.